Vets in Valor podcast, where we uncover the challenges faced by our veterans and spotlight the heroes working tirelessly to make a difference. Hosted by Tyler Hood and Dr. Linda Larson.
Welcome back to Vets in Valor podcast. Today, we have Rocio Palmero. She is a United States Navy veteran, 14 years, and now she works with women, marginalized communities, previous veterans of any sort. What got you to pick the Navy? I think you are our first Navy veteran on the podcast. Do you have a family member, or what intrigued you about the Navy specifically?
Actually, I'm first generation American. My mother's Mexican, my dad's Honduran, and we were the first generation born here. And actually, out of 10 of my generation that are here in the United States, I'm actually the only one that has served in the military. And so the Navy, the reason I chose the Navy is because I grew up watching Private Benjamin. That was like one of my favorite movies. And I'm like, I don't think the Army's for me based on that movie and Stripes. I was like, I don't think the Army's for me. And so when I took the ASVAB, I was just like, let's see what happens. And I had the Marine Corps was calling me, the Navy was calling me, but two of my friends I played softball with, came to one of our softball games in their cute little uniforms. And they were like, we were in Florida and we did this and we did that. And now we're going, they were both stationed, they were going to be stationed in Italy. And so I thought, oh my gosh, that sounds so great, right? So marketing, right? The importance of marketing, the importance of having people with great experiences. And so we had this really just great rapport. I had great rapport with them. And so that's what I chose. That's how I chose the Navy, because Navy is my favorite color, but also because of my two girlfriends from softball that came back in their uniforms and just looked snazzy. That's why I chose the Navy.
That's amazing. I love the story about the movies and like how that inspires you, because I'm a big movie buff and a lot of my decisions in life are based off movies too. So I'm a kindred spirit there. What I'm thinking about is in the Navy, what is the experience like? I've heard the Army stories and I've heard a little bit of the Marine stories, but what was your experience specifically? What did you enjoy? What did you not like? And then also, what's the difference between for you, what is like for a woman going through the Navy and a man going through the Navy, since you get to hear both sides of that story?
Right. So I was 17 when I left for the Navy, for Navy boot camp. And I left in August. I don't know what I was thinking going to Florida in August, but at the time that was the only women's boot camp. And so I went out there. I was 17. It was really interesting to be around people that were just imaginary almost, right? Because you saw them on TV. I grew up in LA. I born and raised in Los Angeles. So I knew, certain Asians, right? I grew up in Koreatown. I knew people of African American descent. I knew Latino descent, and that was it. I really did not have a lot of exposure to anybody else. And so when I went to boot camp, you met people from the South, right? Such as yourself. Yeah. I had seen them on TV, but I had never met anyone from the South, or people who didn't like me or assumed a lot of things because I was of Mexican descent and from Los Angeles. So just initially, right off the bat, there was a lot of culture clash. There was a lot of disagreements. That was the beginning of me being overlooked. I went to the PX to get, or the NEX to get lipstick, and they didn't have the darker colors. They had like peach and pink. And I was like, I don't understand. Like, where's the magenta? Where's the burgundy? Right? Because it was the early 90s. I was into Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like, there was these things that I associated. So it really took me out of my comfort zone. And being so young, I didn't know to question these things. I was like, okay, I guess I'm not going to buy lipstick here. Like, that was it. Like, I gave up. So I went to my first duty station. And so when you think of Navy, you always think of a ship. I thought I was going to go to a ship. At the time, I didn't realize, I found out soon that women were not allowed on the big ships, right? Women might be able to be on the smaller ships to help with refueling, to help with supply, but we were not allowed on the aircraft carrier. And I had just seen Top Gun. So again, I was like, what do you mean? Like, I don't get to do that. On the flip side, I was stationed at Miramar, where I got to launch airplanes. And that was exciting. That was exciting to go out and launch these airplanes, not realizing that these airplanes were never going to be, I was not allowed to ever be able to be on the ships where these airplanes would land and take off from. So automatically you started seeing, you didn't have a lot of women in leadership. And it was something that I noticed, but it wasn't something that it occurred to me to mind. I noticed that. And so who was I supposed to go to? So it was very much a man's world. And we had a lot of women that were younger, just like me, were coming out of high school, or that was their first duty station. And so the women who were in leadership positions were very much not something that was attainable for me. So I had to depend on asking men for help, men for guidance. And the guidance that they gave me, I could hear always sounded very differently than the guidance that they gave other men. Now, my 2 years on active, 12 years as a reservist, I found some really great people. But again, when you're not used to having input or guidance, mentorship, it hinders you. It hinders you so much. And it hindered me. It doesn't hinder everyone, but it hindered me a lot because I didn't know who to ask for help. I didn't know who to ask for guidance. I didn't know who I could trust to give me valid career advice, as opposed to just, fluff, something to quiet me down, just so they can say, hey, I talked to her.
Rocio, I'm also, as you know, a military veteran. And I remember when I joined in my early 20s and I had taken the ASVAB exam. Basically, I was given just one or two types of jobs that they said that I would be able to go into. And so I was looking over your bio, and you've been in very male-dominated career fields, such as transporting ammunitions and explosives. Did those career fields pick you, or did you choose to go into those?
So I chose on active duty. I actually scored, I was supposed to go into linguistics, right? Cryptology. And at a very young age, I think at one point I was able to communicate in 4 different languages. And that was just on my own study, right? So that was something that was a strength that would have been easy for me to go into. But because I didn't trust the people advising me, I said, no, I'm just gonna get out. I'm just gonna be a reservist, right? And so you look for opportunities, right? We're survivors. People, we look for opportunities. What's going to get me ahead? I had been in units where I was the only woman. I've been in units where I had to have, I was in a whole floor by myself because there were no other women, right? When we would go away for 2 weeks, I was the only woman. And so these positions were not stuff I looked for or asked for, but they were opportunities. And so whenever I kind of fell into it, it was something that I didn't question. This is what wound up happening. This is where there was a billet. This is a position that was going to afford me the ability to take care of my son and not be far away from him for too long. So these were just opportunities that presented themselves. And I'm thankful for those opportunities. Some of the experiences were painful, very painful, but I'm a survivor and I survived. And I really lean on my faith. At the time, I didn't have a lot of faith, but now I lean on my faith and I look back and I'm like, I was where I was supposed to be. Like, this is where God handpicked me and allowed me to be in these places, because now all these experiences have created the advocate that I am today.
I love that. I mean, it sounds incredible. I mean, the cryptology, your whole experience within the trials and tribulations that you went through, how does that help you now that you're working with veterans? How do you take from that experience and help others? How does it inform your care and your guidance?
So again, leaning on my faith, like nothing's in vain. Everything that's happened was for a purpose. And I had to deal with my trauma. When I started working in this field, in this community, I had to start dealing with a lot of things I had not wanted to deal with. I had not wanted to talk about things that it didn't occur to me that were an issue. I was just like, these things happen. What's the big deal? it's given me so much compassion, and it's infused my passion. And I see people in pain, and I see people hurting, whether they know that they're in pain and they're hurting or not. I see it and I feel it. And it really pushes me and encourages me to be bold and say, hey, let's figure out a way to address this. Let's figure out a way to help this individual. Ironically, are you ready for this? The first program coordinator for Women Vets on Point, started posting on this thing that was kind of new. You might have heard of it. It was called Facebook. And so I was new to it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is another veteran, and she's a woman. And so I was using it just to connect with my friends who I had been on active duty with or as a reservist with. But she was someone who who was not in my inner circle. And so I started telling her, oh, I'll go to this event. I'll go to this event. And up here, I wanted to go to this event. I put it on my calendar. I, arranged it so I'd be able to attend. But at the moment I was not able, something just did not allow me to go. I couldn't go. And it was because of these things that had not been dealt with. And so I didn't go. So now when we have veteran women who sign up for my events, veteran women who sign up for childcare, veteran women who we even get them an Uber to bring them in, who don't show up, I never get upset. I never get mad. I just remind myself, she's not ready, and that's okay. The days she's going to know that when she is ready, we're here for her. Because when I was ready, my community was here for me, and I'm never going to forget that.
Now, I know that you have a huge passion for being an advocate for our veteran community, and I do want to focus on that. But before we do, I want to ask you a question about when you transitioned out of the military. Did you immediately start using the VA and all of the other resources that are available to our veterans, or did you slowly start using them?
So because I went in when I was 17, I came in under a contract that was 2-year active, 6-year reserves. And it was during an era of downsizing. So I think that was their way of denying A schools. That's like your specialty school, denying A schools to people who might not, who might be problematic. So if the first 2 years you were good, you would get a school. And so I got out. I got out because I had had some bad experiences. I got out because there were people who were trying to help me get to that cryptology school, but I wasn't in a place, and I was 19 years old. I had already, in those 2 years, I had experienced so much. I needed to just walk away and take a break. And it was very overwhelming for me. And so being 19 years old and looking like I was 12, because really I looked like I was 12. I remember walking into a VA office and saying, hi, I just want to see if I qualified for any benefits. And the guy didn't even look me up. He did not look me up on the computer. We did have computers at the time. He did not look me up. He just said, no, you don't qualify for anything. I said, okay. And I walked away. I remember going to the EDD, right? My girlfriend was encouraging, go apply for unemployment benefits. You qualify. And there had been some talk about that at the transitioning class that we were obligated to go to. And so I went, but when I applied for benefits, I didn't assign a veteran benefits specialist to me. They just mailed me some paperwork, and I filled it out and I sent it back, and they denied me for benefits, and I didn't know why. And also I didn't get the opportunity to even ask, because when I tried to ask, I think they were just really overwhelmed with a lot of veterans. And so there was this, I felt like this prejudice against me. And so initially I didn't. I was 19, off of active duty, already a veteran at that age. And I thought, the only other option is I'll be a reservist, right? Because it didn't take as much commitment. And I did not start using my veteran resources until I was probably 25. And that was only to go to school. And then I think probably about 15 years later, I bought my first home. So that was the only other time, because repeatedly I would tell people I was a veteran, and they would quiz me to catch me in a lie, or they would tell me that I was too young to be a veteran, or most painful of all, was people who didn't care and treated me differently than they would treat my male counterparts. I worked in a hospital in Ohio, in Canton, Ohio, and just trying to get 8 hours of sleep, trying to leave my shift so I can get to my reserve center and get 2 hours of sleep was almost impossible. I was like begging them because I had fallen asleep on my way down to Columbus, which is where my duty station was. And I remember driving off the freeway or off the road into a cornfield in my Pontiac Grand Am, 5-speed. I drove stick shift. And so I was always like in a race car. And I remember just going into like a little cornfield and then having to pull my way back out. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. And my biggest concern was not dying because it was so dark. I was like, am I going to get abducted by a UFO? Because it was out in the middle of nowhere. And I was just always having to beg for things that should have been given to me, not because I was an entitled veteran, but I was still wanting to serve my country. And people just disregarded that because of how I look. And I wish I could go back and tell these people, this is what a veteran looks like, you know?
I was thinking what I looked like, and I was 23 when I joined the military, and she's went in at 17, and I could totally relate when she was saying I was a kid. I looked like a kid, you know, and they weren't giving me benefits. She's saying I'm a veteran, especially female, and I still get that today where they just are assuming that I am the spouse of a veteran and that I'm in there trying to get my service or benefits because my spouse was the military veteran. So you're right. We have a long way to come.
No, we do. And then one thing I didn't share, and I just want to keep so you can keep this in perspective, is that when I was going to community college, I had finally gone back and I had one person, and that was a person I was supposed to sign off on for my GI, for me to get my GI Bill. And she was always busy because she was always going to her kids' baseball game. And I lived really close to here to downtown, and this was in Glendale. So it took me maybe 20 minutes to get there. And but she never had time for me. So what did I do? I started sharing at the front, hey, she's never available. She never responds to my calls. I'm trying to make this appointment and she never wants to help me. Is there someone else who can help me? They're like, oh, well, no, she's the only person. I said, well, can I write a letter to someone? Because maybe they need another person. I wasn't trying to get her in trouble. I was just trying to get help. So then I went to the non-veteran counselors and I said, can you help me? Because she won't help me. And I don't know what to do. And so, and I was really proud of myself, but I also know how desperate I was at this point because I'm like, no, I need to do this. I need to do this. And so finally she called me back because enough people were telling her, like, why aren't you doing your freaking job? Right? Like, I'm pretty sure that's what happened. And she was really mad and she was really pissy with me, and that's fine. Go ahead. It's America. Feel what you want to feel. I don't care. I need to get my paperwork signed. And so she signed it. But then there was a time that I was going through crisis. I was dealing with my depression. My son's dad and I had been living together, but it wasn't a healthy dynamic. And if I could go back and apologize to him, I would, because I wasn't the best partner because I wasn't okay. And this woman who had been my counselor, she never said anything. She never said, let me get you some help. She never said, let me refer you to someone. And when I was going to school to get my master's, I took classes at this college. And I guess she's not there anymore, so I guess now I can say it was at Glendale College. So I took my classes there instead of going to CSUN because it just worked out better for me. And she saw me. She's getting ready to retire. And I had wanted to donate my cap and gown to someone else who couldn't afford it. So I was bringing her my cap and gown so she can use it. And so she said, you're not going to believe this. You know, these are the things I was going through. And, you know, I finally got help and I'm on medication and my life is so much better now. And she said, oh, I knew something was wrong with you. I just didn't know what. She said, I didn't know why you would come into my office and start crying. Well, guess what, chick? I didn't know why I was coming into your office and crying either. So they finally have a VRC there. They finally have therapists there. And I'm just thinking, if I went this long suffering with people watching me in crisis, there are so many women out there who are going through the same thing, and not even just women, just veterans in general who are going through the same thing, and people are watching them in crisis and they're not doing anything because of ignorance, and I try so hard not to be angry, but the thought that my son did not have the mom he deserved because I did not get the help I needed, it makes me angry because our children did not pick the veteran life. The veteran life chose them. So why do they have to suffer with someone who is not complete and is not getting the services that they need? So that was just a different perspective.
That's so powerful and so spot on.
And now
Are
you're
we
paying
able
it
to-
back to the future children, like you're helping other mothers now. So it's like these catalysts in our lives, they really do transform us and they become something bigger. And I see that in you now, that you're fixing what couldn't be fixed for yourself for others. And that's beautiful. I mean, that's all you can do.
Another thing that helped normalize mental health conversations is COVID. So I'm thankful for that we were able to normalize these conversations. And these are not conversations I can have with my relatives, because in the Latino community, it's like, está enfermita. It's a term that means, oh, she's sick. She's a little bit sick. Well, yeah, it's sick, it's illness, but there's a cure. There's ways to get, to get help. And so I just always remind myself that this was then, this is not who I am today. And there's a bridge, right? In my mind, I always see a bridge. And I look back and there's all these bridges I was able to walk over. And so now it's my turn to turn around and give my hand out to help somebody else over this bridge. But I know full well that there are people out there who are waiting to give me a hand in to cross that bridge. And so I'm not alone. I am so thankful that I found my community, because things have changed now that I found my people, right? Now that I found my community, I found my people, and I've walked into my destiny and my purpose. I'm literally living my best life because of what I get to do.
Yeah, and don't you, you may feel this too, but like I'm in the same boat as you. Like for me to even, not my mom's passed now, but they never talked about mental health at all. It was like they didn't even recognize it as an illness, or that there could be a chemical imbalance. It just there was none. PTSD, they would not have even recognized that as being an issue.
Yeah,
where this generation is now recognizing and getting help. It's more prevalent, right,
it's
Tyler?
true. Yeah, it's my mom is currently going through a mental health crisis, and watching her mother deal with her, it's like she just treats her like a little child. She doesn't understand what is actually going on a real level. She's just like, stop being this way. And what I'm seeing with these current generation that's growing up is their emotional intelligence is increasing with each generation that's born right now. And the language they're using is so much more sophisticated than the language that I grew up with. Like, I didn't get diagnosed with anxiety until I went to college. And honestly, in high school, I never even heard the word anxiety. So I didn't know what it was. And I was just experiencing it. But, the fact that it was labeled something when I got to college, and now it's like my little 8-year-old nephew is talking about anxiety. And it's like, okay, we're getting somewhere, so it's moving along. And I'm glad that we can be, advocates for this. And I think when other women hear your story, Rocio, they will feel this, and they know that, like, you're an example of what is on the other side. I'm thinking about all the young women that are transitioning, into becoming, Navy, Army, Marine. From your experience, what kind of advice would you give them? And then for the women that are transitioning out, what advice would you give those women?
So I think for both, there's three different, I'm going to divide them differently, right? We have the veteran women who are still young, who are coming out, right? And I want to tell them, like, the world is your oyster. You know, this isn't 1919. You know, we have the right to vote. We have access to an education. We have the right to get paid the same wages as our male counterparts. And don't ever feel like you have to apologize for that. That is your given right. It's what I want to tell those young women. Your future is bright. You have all these things that you get to do. Don't let somebody else deter you from the things that you have access to. So that would be the first thing. The second thing I would love to tell a veteran woman, especially like a mom, like I was always told that they didn't give you your child in your sea bag, so your child should have to come second. And what a horrible message to tell a man, a father, that, you know, and to put the privilege of being a father second to their service in the military. That's horrible, but it's worse when you're a mom, you know, because you become a mom when you start growing that baby. Men usually don't feel like a dad until they see that baby being born. So we were a mom even before then, and we shouldn't be apologetic for that. Our child, we're the only mom that child has. The military has other people. So never feel that you have to choose between being a good mom and your service to this country. I love serving my country. With all the things I have gone through, I love serving my country, but I regret not having invested more time with my son when he was little. And just, I remember crying when I had to leave him to go to reserves, and I remember crying and getting pulled over because I was in a hurry to get home to him because it was time to nurse him. And, you know, I was leaking. So when I got pulled over, I remember the police was like, the CHP was like, why, is there a particular reason you're speeding? And I said, yes. I said, I'm a reservist and I just got let go and I have to get home to feed my son. And I showed him like, look, I'm not joking. This is what's going on with my body right now. So he let me go with a warning. So I was thankful for that. But I just look back and I'm like, how could I have done that differently, that I didn't feel that I had to choose, you know? And I can't go back in time. I cannot go back in time. Those years are lost. So do not feel that you have to choose between or the other, you know, and if you do, like, please choose your child. The third thing I would want to speak to is to a lot of our veterans who don't qualify for some of the programs. We have a lot of post 9/11 veterans and programs for those veterans. And yeah, we have a lot of veterans who are post 9/11, but the ones that are coming to seek services, especially with Women Vets on Point, are pre 9/11. And those programs there are no programs. It's a fraction of what is available to the post 9/11 programs. And so what I want to say is, like, there is no program. Start asking for it, start requesting it, start telling it and being vocal, and don't feel like we have to fall in line and we have to accept orders. And the order is, no, there's no program for you. Sorry, not sorry. Well, we're free. We have the privilege and the right to speak up and advocate for ourselves without fear of persecution or retaliation, and say, you know what, I need services and you're not providing. Who can I talk to about this? Which is another thing, like, looking back, I wish I would have done more sooner, but whatever. That's why I work so hard now, is to make up for lost time. And I don't want anyone else to suffer longer than they have to, because I suffered long enough, you know, and we're here now, and we're in a place and in a time where we have amazing advocates. We have all these amazing programs. And in Los Angeles specifically, we are so spoiled, because you go to other places, they don't have what they have here. So those are the things I would say to my veteran sisters in those different stages.
I loved what you said about, hey, if there's not a program, let's build a program. I was in Las Vegas last week at the town hall meeting for US vets, and was happy to find out that they just started a formal program for LGBTQ. I think it had been around for just a couple weeks now, but that's so profound and right on target to what we should be doing. Now, you are the program manager for US Vets, for Women's Vets on Point. How long have you been doing that position, and what are some of the programs that you provide?
It was 3 years in January, but I was with US Vets a little bit longer than that. We have really great, this was here's what I'm gonna say about US Vets. I am so proud to work for this organization because we have sites. We have like 12 different sites. We're coming up on Ventura, right? We're starting up our Ventura site. We have one down in Orange County. We have all this representation. And but Women Vets on Point is very rare and it's only here. So we have being able to do that job and being able to advocate for women is amazing. But I know that the plans are set to have a Woman Vets on Point in some of our other sites. In addition to like the LGBT program, we are also pushing out our older veteran program, right? Because we also see that there's that need as well. An 80-year-old veteran is not going to have the same needs as a 30-year-old veteran. So those are some of the things that this program gets to do. So that's how long I've been with it. With US Vets, it'll be 4 years in August. And then, I turned 3 years as a program coordinator for Women Vets on Point in January. So within those years, some people found it very catastrophic to start a new job during COVID, but I did not, because growing up poor, growing up as children of immigrants, and we were just trying to survive at that time. I've learned to sometimes we can't jump over a hurdle. Sometimes we have to go around it. Sometimes we have to dig under it. And so I saw opportunity. We had a captive audience. We had people that were isolated. And guess what? Zoom was free. And thanks to the founder of Zoom, and Teams was available. And so we all became very proficient in Teams. We all became very proficient in Zoom. And the best thing was that we were able to just send stuff out and trial and error. Nobody was going to die if I did not send out the right looking flyer, right? So we started working on flyers. We started working on having meetings. We started working on sending out surveys. What is it that you want to see? Here's what we have available. And so it was such a great time. And I got to work for individuals who said, I don't know, do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. We trust you. And they did. And so this program has grown. And my biggest hero is Steve Peck, because Steve Peck, this was his idea, and this was his little child, his seed. And he's like, no, women are dying. Women are dying by suicide. We need to do something about it. And he actually did. Because you can write a report up and you can quote numbers and you can do all this other stuff. But if you're not doing anything about it, that's the issue. So we started out, we had groups, but we changed up a little bit of the dynamic. And to this day, we still have a group on Wednesday and we still have a group on Friday that anyone from across the country can log into. So we've had people from Virginia, from Alabama, from Tennessee, from Texas log in, Minnesota, Wisconsin, logged in to find out what this group was about. So that was really a beautiful thing, that in areas where they're not being represented, that they were able to still find support and community. We have that group. We have a therapist who can see anyone in the state of California. And she is an Army veteran. She is a Marine wife, right? Marine spouse. And so she sees male spouses, she sees couples, and she sees children. So that's the other benefit. And then if sometimes we have individuals who are, they're facing homelessness, they're needing someone to talk to. So we are able to find community partners in their state, in their areas when they're not in California, such as Wounded Warrior Project or Centerstone. Centerstone is another organization that will see a veteran in places like Indiana. You know, it's like, who would have known that? So we try to connect veterans who are in need in other places, in other states, and other communities, and being able, I'm big on community. Like that is, if I can partner up with someone, I want to partner up because it's not about me, it's about the veterans we can help. And so we are able to reach out because of this thing called the phone, and we're able to reach out because of this thing called Zoom and Teams, and we're able to do all these amazing things across the country to help support our veteran women with their gas bills, with their rent. Another one of our partners is Foundation for Women Warriors. So it's not a competition, right? Like, oh no, we want all the veterans. We're not going to send anybody there. It's the opposite. Hey, we have some people, can you help this person? Or they'll refer someone to us. Oh, Foundation for Women Warriors asked if we could please do this. You know, can you, they said you can help. and we help. And I think what some of my favorite stories are, here's one I'm going to tell you. This is probably top on my mind. It just came to me right now. I had a friend on active duty, and we didn't always get along. Like, there was been a couple of times we were going to throw down fighting because I was young. She was older. She was more mature, and I just had a smart mouth. I'm so glad I outgrew that. And so she was actually my maid of honor. And so she had a GoFundMe on Facebook. And I said, so she calls me, she goes, hey, did you see my GoFundMe? I'm like, why are you asking for money on a GoFundMe? You're a veteran. She's like, well, I just don't know. I'm stranded here in Texas. I was coming out here for a job, blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, we're going to figure this out. So I was able to connect with an organization called Veteran Women of San Antonio. And I almost fell out my chair. I'm like, y'all have your own veteran organization just for women? Like, what is that? Like, what do you mean? And so I was able to connect with the commander out there. And so they were able to help this veteran get into housing. They were able to get her food. Her cat died. They were able to have the cat cremated and then have, you know, a memento of that cat. She also had, her car had broken down. They were able to help her get her car fixed by tapping into their community partners there in San Antonio. So those are the things that I get to be a part of. Those are the things that we get to do, is connecting with our community partners, finding out who else is out there, because there are enough veterans to go around. We do not ever have to fight over a veteran, you know, and nobody's gonna punish a veteran for accessing more than one service, you know? So that's what we get to do.
So with veterans, what is the common, I mean, you've been working so long at this point, what is the common trend you see? Like, you know, they get out of the military and then they need to do this, this, and this, but they don't want to do it for this, this, and this reason. What are you seeing the most when you work with, especially women veterans?
It's worse with women. It's worse with women. I'll tell you why. Men, it's like, okay, well, I'm supposed to be the breadwinner and, you know, I'll be fine. But you can't walk because your back is messed up. Go to the VA. No, 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 no. I'll be fine. You know, and until they're ready, you know, either we have these conversations about their children and their family. Like, you need to be your best for the sake of your family. You know, you're the head of the household usually, right? And he's trying to be strong for everyone else. And it's okay to lean on one another, right? So but it's worse with women, right? I remember giving birth and wanting to go to drill weekend that following weekend because I needed the money. And it's just like, wait a second. You know, my friend was like, you have a hole inside of you. Like, you cannot go work. You need to rest. So I was like, okay. So taking that example and looking at all of our women veterans, you know, when you walk into a place and you ask for services, they're like, is that for your spouse? Is that for somebody else? Or is that well, can you show us? Right? You're told, you're made to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that you're truly a veteran. So that makes it really hard to ask for help. The other thing is that we live in a very complex society where you either benefit from like associating yourself with a veteran, or you still have this idea of like the broken veteran, the one that's out on the street begging for cash with a sign that says veteran needs help, right? Like, you still have these ideas, these pictures in your mind, and that's not true. That's not necessarily always true. And so being able to identify as a veteran, it's touch and go. I remember working with someone right after 9/11, and we were talking about how I was bringing up some issue with veterans, right? Because at the time I was drilling and I was getting ready to deploy. And she said to me, well, veterans took that, you know, military people take the easy way out. I went to college and I stayed here, you know, they shouldn't get anything more than what they already have. And I was just in shock that she would say that to me, knowing full well my service, knowing full well what I did, you know, knowing full well that I was a mom, and that I was doing it for my son. So it's the attitudes of the community that really dictates how we respond, how we identify, whether or not we identify. You know, I had there was a time when I needed food stamps. And I remember going in and saying, hey, there was a box you check off if you're a veteran. But nobody ever came back and say, oh, you're a veteran. Thank you for your service. Let's see how we can help you. Or you know what? Go, because it was over here in Grand, not that far away, for like 10 minutes from here. And they didn't say go to Bob Patriotic Hall to get services. They were just like, oh yeah, you're a veteran, right? And that was it. So our society, I think, has to do a better job. I'm not entitled. There's not a lot of veterans that I know that are entitled, but I think that there's so many programs that they need to, that our society and our community, our culture has to be able to identify, hey, this person has a need, let's find out. Or I believe somebody came on and spoke to us that they would help someone who's a veteran in need. Let's connect them with that service, right? Or that we don't bother looking stuff up. Some of us are Google maniacs. I love Google. Let's Google this. Let's Google that. Hey, but and like these strange questions, and Google will answer it. Nobody's bothering to take that extra step to say, let me see who I can connect this person with. You know, we can help you, but there might be another program that might be better for you. We need education. We need to change the way we look at things. And we as veterans need to change the way that we look at ourselves and the part that we play in this community.
Thanks so much, Rocio. You're such a great resource. And if people want to connect with you or get in touch with you and your organizations, what's the best way that they can do that?
I'm so glad you asked. Women Vets on Point, actually, we have our own site. It's www.womenvetsonpoint.org. We actually have a live chat from 8 to 4, except during lunchtime. But anytime you can go on and you can have a chat with our case manager, Josie. And so you're able to tell her, hey, I need this help or these services. And we also have a great newsletter. If you scroll down to the bottom of that page, womenvetsonpoint.org, you can actually sign up for our newsletter and find out not just the services and the events that we have coming up, but also we love to post things for our community partners because, again, there's enough to go around. And I love building up that community. So those are probably the two best ways. If anyone wants to email me directly, they can email me at rpalmero@usvets.org.